I want to thank Senator Boozman. He's chair of a very important appropriations subcommittee who has always been helpful, and he offered to come down here and see firsthand the conditions both for housing of our Marines but also for the housing for our families. And it's been a very informative day. We got an update on the disaster recovery work, almost $3 billion, almost $4 billion in work that we ultimately have to fund over time. Yesterday we passed the National Defense Authorization. We did that the day before yesterday, but the disaster supplemental bill, we understand we've got some work to do in the House, but it's going to provide much needed funding for Camp Lejeune and the surrounding area for recovery from the storm. I'm glad on a bipartisan basis we got the disaster supplement out yesterday, and quite honestly, the message to anybody who's holding up in the House, get over it, provide relief. We need it now. Well, the next step, I think, is for the Speaker working with members in the majority and the minority to go back and make people recognize. What I always find interesting are people who will pound the table for disaster recovery when their state's affected, but then tend to oppose it. The reality is we have disasters all over the United States. This is when we need to set politics or some sort of a purist ideological position aside and get relief to people who need it, particularly when you're talking about men and women in the Marines and their families that are down here. Some of them are still displaced. This is not the time to play politics or play perfect. In the last, in the bill that we voted on yesterday, it's a little less than $400 million. It should be sufficient funds to move us to continue projects that are underway, start up some other projects. But we have another $900 million that we need to get into the pipeline pretty soon, or we could have a break in projects, which is highly inefficient, not the way to do it. It moves everything to the right. So we're going back, and again, Senator Boozman spending a day down here with us will give him a bird's eye view of what our challenges are, and I have every reason to believe he's going to continue to do the great support that he's already done for us. We're working to make sure the funding comes in the increments that they need to keep the project going without any sorts of delays. We already had a lot of money come to the state for hurricane relief, but it was in the outside of the base. Now what we're talking about is providing the resources for the work that we need to do at Camp Lejeune. So they're kind of running in parallel. The bill that we passed yesterday also had relief for farmers who have been waiting for almost 7 months to get relief, and quite honestly, some of them are missing a growing season as a result of it because Congress didn't act as quickly as they should have.
I appreciate Senator Tillis and Senator Barr asking me to come and look at this firsthand. I'm chair of the Military Construction Committee. I'm here, more importantly, my staff is here to see this firsthand. It's one thing to look at a spreadsheet, look at pictures. It's another thing to actually walk around, visit with the soldiers that are stationed here, visit with the commanders, and see it firsthand. This base is important not only for this area. I can't imagine the economic opportunity that it creates, but it's important for the country. The Marines, unlike the Navy and the Air Force and the other services, it only has a couple bases. This is the installation on the East Coast. So it's not only important for this state, it's important for Arkansas and the rest of the country. Well, we've had the opportunity to see some of the conventional housing, some of the restoration after the flood, some of it that hasn't been gotten to yet. Same is true of the barracks. We had a really good briefing as to what needs to be done now. And then hopefully the silver lining out of this, we've had this terrible tragedy happen, but what we'd like to do is be able, a lot of these structures needed to be replaced and updated anyway. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that about as we go forward. So we talked about the master plan for the base going out several years. And in regard to funding, I'm committed to providing the funding that we need. So I rely on the commanders here, the commandant of the Marines, to tell us what they need as to what's being done now, the $400 million, whatever. There's a finite amount of money that can be spent in a time period. So what we're trying to do is provide those dollars so we can keep moving forward, okay?
I've been down here 17 times probably since the storm. It's been my number one priority. Getting resources has been a little frustrating, but I think after the Senate passed the legislation last night, I think the promise to pay is there.